Thanks for joining me on the Listen Up Girl podcast, where I bring you LGBTQ plus news several times a week. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today's episode is about visibility, who gets it, who denies it, and what's expected to carry the weight of representation just to exist. From pop culture to professional sports to courtrooms, classrooms, and city leadership, today's stories show how power operates quietly and loudly at the same time. We're talking about who's allowed to be messy, who's expected to be perfect, and who still isn't safe enough to be honest and out loud. These aren't disconnected headlines, they're reflections of the same tension playing out across queer life right now. So let's get into it. Our first story is Obama's culture list and queer legitimacy. Former President Barack Obama has released his annual list of favorite books, films, and music, a tradition he began while still in the White House, and this year includes several LGBTQ plus anthems. Among the picks are tracks from Lady Gaga and Chappell Roan, artists whose work has long resonated with queer audiences. Gaga's inclusion feels familiar. She has been an outspoken LGBTQ plus ally for years. But Ronan's presence signals something newer. The mainstreaming of openly queer, unapologetic storytelling that doesn't dilute itself for broader appeal. Obama framed the list as a way to share joy and discovery, encouraging people to explore new voices. He also included Michelle Obama's book on his reading list, joking that he was obviously biased, prompting a playful online exchange between the former first couple. While these lists are often treated as light cultural moments, they matter. When a former president publicly elevates queer art, it reinforces that LGBTQ plus creativity is niche or marginal. It's part of a cultural canon. In a time when queer expression is increasingly politicized, that validation carries weight. So thank you, President Obama. We still love you. Our next story is Dylan Kevitch and the cost of becoming viral. Dylan is continuing to watch his internet moment unfold in real time, a reminder of how quickly digital culture can transform an ordinary person into a symbol. What a single phrase has now spread across profile bios, meme pages, and comment sections on multiple platforms. The moment escalated when it caught the attention of Doja Cat, creating a public interaction that pushed Dylan further into the algorithm spotlight. The kind of viral is often framed as effortless or lucky, but it comes with its own pressures. Attention arrives fast without consent or preparation and can disappear just as quickly. Identity becomes content, humor becomes branding, and Dylan's moment highlights how internet culture increasingly feeds on relatability, but also how quickly people are flattened into moments rather than allowed to be complex humans. Viral isn't just visibility, it's exposure, and not everyone chooses it. I've watched his videos a few times, and he's funny. I liked it when he was doing the HR videos where he was on a team, the HR was online, and I don't know, they were funny. You had to TikTok search him and find him. Next, Cardi B drag race and the allyship divide. As online discourse around MAGA Minaj continues to spiral, Cardi B's upcoming guest judge appearance on RuPaul's Drag Race has taken on a new for queer audiences. Fans have resurfaced Nicki Minaj's past critiques of drag performers, comments that now feel especially stark in light of her political alignment and recent public appearances alongside right-wing figures. In contrast, Cardi B has consistently shown up for drag queens and queer artists, not just as aesthetics, but as people. Cardi's relationship with the drag community has long been rooted in mutual respect and celebration. She has repeatedly uplifted drag performers, spoken out about queer joy, and embraced the culture without distancing herself when it becomes politically inconvenient. What's emerging isn't just celebrity comparison, it's a broader conversation about allyship. Who profits from queer culture, who disappears when the politics turn hostile, and who remains present when support actually costs something. And Cardi B, we love you. Next story is a new masculinity takes hold. Masculinity is back at the center of pop culture, but not the version conservatives are trying to sell. With shows like Heated Rivalry dominating conversations and becoming one of the most talked about series on television, and Jonathan Bailey becoming people's sexiest man alive, audiences are clearly responding to portrayals of men who are emotionally open, tender, and unafraid of intimacy. These depictions reject the long-standing idea that masculinity must be stoic, aggressive, and emotionally distant. Instead, they center on vulnerability, connection, and mutual desire, qualities once dismissed as weak. What's notable is how widely these portrayals are resonating. This just isn't about queer audiences seeing themselves reflected. It's about a broader cultural fatigue with toxic masculinity and a hunger for something softer, safer, and more honest. Our next story is Oklahoma court stops Christian nationalism. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has ruled that former state education head Ryan Walters violated state law by attempting to force Christian nationalist content into public schools' curriculum. The court found Walters broke the Open Meeting Act by bypassing transparency requirements and pushing curriculum changes without proper approval. Walters responded by framing the ruling as an attack on Christianity, the Bible, and Donald Trump. Rhetoric critics say deliberately misrepresents the issue. At the heart of the case is a separation of church and state. Public schools are not religious institutions, and courts have consistently affirmed that education policy must remain secular and accountable. The ruling is viewed as a significant pushback against a growing movement to inject religious ideology into public governance, particularly in ways that marginalize LGBTQ+ students and families. And Mr. Walters, just in case you didn't realize, not everybody is a Christian. There are Jewish people, there are Muslims, there are Hindus, there are many people, and then there's people with no religion. So stop trying to force your religion on these students and you got caught doing it. So think of a new plan. Next, states push back on trans healthcare ban. 19 states have filed a lawsuit to block a Trump-backed plan supported by RFK Jr. that would strip federal funding from hospitals providing gender-affirming care to minors. If enacted, the policy would financially punish hospitals for offering care supported by major medical organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Medical Association. State attorney generals argue the plan is politically motivated and overrides medical expertise. They warn it would destabilize the healthcare systems, limit access to care, and place trans youth at greater risk, particularly those in rural or underserved areas. The lawsuit represents one of the strongest legal challenges yet to federal efforts aimed at restricting trans healthcare nationwide. Our next story is Erik Bottcher and the importance of state power. New York City Council member Erik Bottcher has dropped his bid for Congress and announced a run for New York Senate. Bottcher said the decision reflects where he believes he can do the most immediate good, particularly on housing, affordability, mental health services, environmental protections, and safeguarding civil rights as federal protections weaken. The seat he's pursuing is being vacated by another openly gay lawmaker, reinforcing LGBTQ+ representation at the state level. At the time when national politics feel gridlocked, Bottcher's move underscores the growing importance of state and local leadership in protecting marginalized communities. Our next story is academic freedom under pressure. The University of Oklahoma has removed a graduate teaching assistant from instructional duties after a student received a 0 on an essay about gender stereotypes. The incident sparked protest on campus and quickly drew national attention after the conservative groups amplified the story. The university stated that grading was arbitrary and reaffirmed its commitment to teaching students how to think, not what to think. The controversy has reignited debates over academic freedom, political pressure, and how gender-related topics are handled in higher education, particularly as universities increasingly find themselves caught between politics. Next, LGBTQ leadership at the FDNY. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has named Lillian Bonsignor as New York City's next fire commissioner, a historic appointment for LGBTQ+ representation and public safety. Lillian is a 31-year veteran at the FDNY who served in the aftermath of 9/11 and led EMS operations during COVID-19 pandemic. She previously made history as the first openly gay LGBTQ+ chief of EMS operations. Her appointment sends a clear message. LGBTQ+ leadership belongs at the highest level of public service, not as symbolism, but as recognition of experience, competence, and trust. And thank you to the new mayor for recognizing that. Next, Jacob Tierney shuts down the heated rivalry critics. The show Heated Rivalry, created by Jacob Tierney, has responded bluntly to critics who've accused the series of being unrealistic, over-sexualized, or insignificantly educational in its portrayal of gay men. In a comment that quickly gained traction online, Tierney reminded viewers of something increasingly forgotten in the era of moral panic and media scrutiny. This is television, not a documentary. He wrote, "This isn't a fucking documentary," Tierney said. "You want to watch them douche every episode?" His response struck a nerve and resonated with many queer viewers who feel LGBTQ plus stories are often held to impossible standards. Straight actors are allowed to be messy, sexual, and realistic without explanation. Queer characters, meanwhile, are expected to educate, represent perfectly, and justify their existence at every turn. Tierney's pushback highlights a larger cultural issue. Queer joy, desire, and fantasy are still treated as suspect, something that must be defended, rationalized, or sanitized to be considered acceptable. At its core, isn't trying to teach a lesson, it's offering romance, chemistry, and escapism, the same indulgence heterosexual audiences have always been allowed. And Tierney's message was clear: queer stories deserve that same freedom. Our next story is 0 active players are out, and that's not a coincidence. Despite decades of progress in LGBTQ plus visibility across sports, not a single active NHL player has come out as gay or bisexual. Based on population estimates, advocates say that there could be realistically dozens of closeted gay or bi men currently in the league, and yet silence persists. This absence is evidence that queer players don't exist. It's evidence of an environment that doesn't feel safe enough. Hockey culture has long been associated with hypermasculinity, locker room policy, and an unspoken expectation of conformity. While leagues and teams may promote pride nights and inclusion statements, players themselves are still navigating contracts, fan backlash, and media scrutiny, and career risk. Coming out doesn't just mean personal vulnerability, it can mean becoming a symbol, a headline, and a lightning rod. The fact that 0 active players are out isn't a mystery. It's a measure of how far professional sports still have to go when it comes to lived inclusion, not just rainbow branding. And I was not into hockey, but I had a couple of friends that are stalkers of hockey players over their lives. And I think it would be interesting if I talked to them about who's hot and who's not, and who's possibly gay or bi in hockey. Because if anybody would know, they would know. Right, girls? My next story is LGBTQ plus youth are coming out earlier than ever. The new data from Pew Research Center shows a striking generational shift in how and when LGBTQ people are coming out. 67% of gay and lesbian adults under 30 say they came out to someone before the age of 18. A dramatic contrast to older generations, many who didn't come out until adulthood or even came out at all. This shift reflects increased visibility, language, and access to information, but it doesn't mean the process is easy. Coming out earlier often means navigating identity while still dependent on family, school systems, communities that may not be affirming. For some young people, early coming out leads to support and self-confidence. For others, it increases exposure to rejection, bullying, or family conflict. Especially in regions where anti-LGBTQ plus legislation is accelerating, the data shows progress, but it also underscores a responsibility. As more young people come out earlier, the system around them, families, schools, healthcare, and government, must do better at ensuring safety, affirmation, and care. Visibility without protection is not progress. So that was my last story. If these stories remind us that progress isn't just measured by visibility, it's measured by safety, freedom, and who actually gets protected when the spotlight moves on. Culture can open doors, but policy decide who gets to walk through them. And representation only matters if it comes with room to be human. That's it today for Listen Up Girl on Tuesday, December the 30th. This is my last podcast of news stories for 2025. Check back tomorrow. I will have a look ahead of what I'm hoping comes for us, the LGBTQ plus community, in 2026. And then on January 2nd, I will have another breakdown of a news story that has been taking over the headlines for the past well, really months, but the last week especially. And I'll break that down and I'll be back with fresh news stories on January the 3rd. Have a wonderful new year. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone that needs it and keep paying attention. I'll see you next time and have a wonderful and happy new year.